Breaking news out of Universal Studios Hollywood, and that is ParkFans.net has obtained the full layout for the park's new Intamin Multi-launch coaster that's set to open up in the next few years. My name is Brandon and welcome to Theme Park Predictions, and I'm going to give you all of my thoughts on this insane looking roller coaster that quite possibly could be better than Velocicoaster. Now, who would have thought that? But trust me, once I break down this detailed layout from ParkFans.net, you're going to understand why this coaster could potentially really be better than Velocicoaster. And that is just insane. And with a layout like this, it's going to get you as well as myself flocking to California to go check out this roller coaster located at Universal Studios Hollywood. Now this coaster is rumored to have a Fast and Furious theme to it, which would make a lot of sense because that iconic IP definitely deserves a great roller coaster to go along with it, not the piece of crap that Universal Studios Florida built for their attraction that is themed to Fast and Furious. And a huge shout out goes to ParkFans.net for breaking this information. You gotta follow them on social media as well as check out their website on the regular because they're constantly dropping these type of things. They always do great work, so again, be sure to check them out. Now, let's talk about this layout. Now with this aerial map, you can see just how this layout will be placed within Universal Studios Hollywood. And just when you thought they could not build a massive roller coaster, here we are looking at a layout for a roller coaster that's going to be way over 4,000 feet. And I would say potentially 5,000 feet. It all depends on the tallest point of this coaster, as well as if there's any large drops. And more on that in a minute. Now the first thing your eyes are probably drawn to is the interaction that the coaster's layout will have with the people movers going from the upper lot to the lower lot of the park. And this element looks absolutely insane because the train is going to travel over the escalators and then down underneath them. Now, if you're thinking that this image is kind of hard to read, don't worry because what I'm about to show you breaks down every single element. Another thing your eyes are probably drawn to is the very long out and back segment of this coaster that runs behind the Minions themed area as well as the Jurassic World ride. And I have to admit, when this ride first got announced, I did not know how far they would go in this direction with the layout, but I love what I'm seeing here because obviously this roller coaster takes up a ton of room. But let's break down each individual element, and here is why this will become California's best roller coaster. And you can mark my words on that until we get the Giga for Knots. As you can see, the ride starts off with a dual station, just like the Mummy attraction as well as a bunch of other Universal coasters offer. And the orange circles represents the track switches that brings the train to and from the maintenance area as you can see here. The coaster first starts off with a launch. Now while we do not know how fast this coaster will go, since it is themed to Fast and Furious, I'd guess that this thing's going to go pretty fast obviously. So if I were to predict, I would say the first launch is going to get the train up to about 55 to 60 miles an hour. And the first element is a bank turn to the left, followed by an airtime hill with a pretty large looking drop after it. But here is where the layout really starts to get intriguing, because after the large drop after the airtime hill, the layout offers some ground-hugging bank turns. And this is really going to get the sense of speed there for the ride, which is always a positive when you're really trying to imply how fast the roller coaster goes. Then you're going to enter the ride's first inversion, a corkscrew element. And I would imagine that this corkscrew would be on the larger side, which is not a bad thing at all. Following the corkscrew, the train is going to go into yet again another ground-hugging bank turn. Then the train enters this very long straight section of track here. As you can see, ParkFans.net labeled it as brakes. Now, I don't know what happens before the actual brake run starts. Maybe it's a bunny hill, maybe it's something else. But this is a very long brake run, so I feel like there's definitely an element that goes before the brake run here. Now we get to the gray triangles, and this is where ParkFans.net is kind of unsure what type of element could be, but they're taking their best guess. And I have to agree with them. Based on what we see here, this element does make a lot of sense. immediately following the brake run, and I believe there will be a drop after this brake run, so I guess it's going to be like a mid-course brake run here, then it's going to drop off after the brake run into a stangle dive or a wall stall, followed by a pretty large looking drop, then into the ride's second launch. Immediately following this launch, the train's going to enter a steep rise into a dive drop. And after this twisted, insane looking element, you're going to enter yet another launch. And this time it's going to bring you into a speed hill. And I predict that this is the part of the layout that I think the trains will reach the maximum speed of this coaster. Following that launch, the train looks like it's going to enter a speed hill, which obviously means even more airtime. Now, before I talk about this next element, it's important for you to know that this coaster is going to be based on the terrain underneath the ride. So basically, this whole entire layout is on the side of a hill. So it's going to be really cool to see how this actual coaster fits in with the layout as far as how high the elements are off the ground, if it's going to be more ground hugging, or if it's going to be, the track will be elevated even higher. But regardless, get ready for some great interaction between the track as well as the terrain underneath it. Also, if you have not checked out my online coaster gear store, be sure to do so, because you can get a shirt just like this, and here are some other shirts I've created as well, and I design all my own graphics, so I really do appreciate all the support. And if you're new here, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my content. I really do appreciate it, and please give the video a thumbs up, and I hope that you consider becoming the newest Theme Park Prediction subscriber. Now, let's get back into the second half of this ride's layout. So after the speed hill, the train is going to travel through a banked rised element. So again, this coaster's layout is over the terrain. So I'd imagine it's going to be curving up to the left here, leading into potentially the best element the coaster's going to offer, and that is an inverted stall. Now we know Velocicoaster has one, Pantheon has one, so I'm very curious to see how large this inverted stall is going to be. And as the train exits this element, you're going to enter the ride's final launch. Yes, this roller coaster is going to feature 4 launches. Now following this launch, you are then going to enter the element that is going to interact with the escalators going from the upper lot to the lower lot. And ParkFans.net is labeling this a junior dive loop. So after this inversion, the coaster then enters yet another corkscrew that appears to travel over the ride's first launch as well as the ride's last launch. Following the last inversion of the ride, you then enter a very sharp bank turn into the final brake run. So as you can see, this is why I think this roller coaster has potential to become the best one in California, which also means it's going to become the best coaster on the entire West Coast. Now you might be thinking, where's this element located on this layout? And according to this layout, this reverse twisted spike is not on this layout. Now again, this is concept rendering, so a lot can change here, and clearly that piece of this layout is no longer on the actual layout. So I do find that kind of interesting as to why Universal did not want to include this reverse spike. But overall, I'm very impressed with this ride's layout. It has everything you want in a roller coaster. It has launches, inversions, airtime, and some really cool looking transitions. But best of all, I really love how this layout will interact with Universal Studios Hollywood as far as both lots as well as the escalators. So what are your thoughts on this layout? Because I know it's a lot to take in, and how do you think this will stack up with Velocicoaster? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And again, a huge shout out goes to ParkFans.net for breaking this information. You gotta follow them. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and keep riding coasters.